right.
Put them behind your back.
Oh, look like
Oh, it might be handcuffed. Shit. I don't want them feelings.
All right, I think we are live. We're going live. So, welcome everybody. We are live on Facebook. So, welcome. I'm Lori Stone from Northern California Innocence Project, and I'm hosting this first of 4 Facebook Live events in our Spring Shelter series. And I have with me our wonderful 2 attorneys, Kelley Fleming and Melissa O'Connell. And I also have a very special guest, exoneree Jack Sagin, all the way from Arizona, where it's 103 degrees. So welcome, everybody. This is going to be a somewhat educational presentation. There's going to be some information shared here. We'll talk a little bit about Jack's case also, but this is also to recognize Saturday was National DNA Day. And so we are here to talk about DNA specifically. And so Missy, Melissa, Missy, I'm going to hand it off to you because you're going to tell us a little bit about what that means, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone is safe and healthy and adjusting to being home. And thank you for joining us today. We just briefly wanted to let you know what National DNA Day actually is. And it's not something that was made up by our office. National DNA Day actually commemorates the successful completion of the Human Genome Project in 2003 and the discovery of DNA's double helix, bringing a lot of you back to science class in high school, by James Watson and Francis Crick in 1953. National DNA Day is officially celebrated, as Lori said, on April 25th, which was this past Saturday. And began after the first session of the 108th Congress passed concurrent solutions designating that day back in 2003. This annual celebration offers students, teachers, and the public many exciting opportunities, one of which is what we're hoping to offer you all today, to learn about the latest advances in genomic research and explore what that means to your lives. I'm going to turn things over to Kelley to explain how significant DNA has been to the Innocence movement, and you'll hear in a little bit how significant it was to Jack's life personally.
Thank you. I'm Kelley, and I guess the value of DNA technology cannot be overstated in relationship to the Innocence movement. The movement started in 1989 in New York with the founding of the Innocence Project, and they were looking at cases where there was DNA. And the reason why the DNA was so very important is that DNA was this new tool. I know a lot of people remember maybe the OJ trials and things like that, where they were suddenly learning about this DNA thing and they could connect somebody to a piece of crime scene evidence. And what we found out about that time was that DNA could be used in ways that used to do things that that other tools in the toolbox of a investigator just couldn't be used. For instance, in the past, the law enforcement had to rely on witnesses or what they thought that evidence suggested. And now they had this amazing ability to take a piece of evidence, and if it was a single source of DNA, one person has left their DNA on it, they could compare it to the DNA profile of a person who is a possible suspect. And if they didn't have a suspect, they could upload that into the national database and see if they could get some sort of connection there. And what was so very important about that is that we, sorry, I'm getting text messages while this is going on. Was that the first 200 exonerations through the Innocence Project provided a lot of data. And the Innocence Project took a look at what that data showed us. And what it did is it showed us that there were 6 leading causes of wrongful conviction. You have faulty eyewitness identification, where a witness says that they saw something that maybe they did and maybe they didn't. Our minds are not the same as a video recorder. Although it might seem like that to you when you're remembering something, many times your memories aren't accurate. Informants, somebody who's paid to testify, that's legal in the state of California under some circumstances. And we'll learn a whole lot more about informants in a little bit. Government misconduct, be it law enforcement, the district attorney's office, the courts, whatever it is. For every good actor or 10 good actors, there might be one person who is doing something that isn't necessarily right. Maybe they know that it's not right. Maybe they don't know that it's not right. Regardless, that's one of the causes of wrongful conviction. False confessions, people confess to things that they didn't do. As hard as it is to really wrap your head around that for some people, it does happen. Inadequate defense, your defense attorney didn't do a good job. That happens very often, and not always leads to a wrongful conviction, but it certainly isn't protecting the defendant like the Constitution requires. And invalid or improper forensic science. And one of the things that is striking to me about the DNA technology is that when they realized that they could make this connection, they went back and looked at old cases and realized, oh, there's these other cases where we had, say, bite marks, and we connected somebody to something through a bite mark. And what we learned is that bite mark technology and that science is not exact, and you cannot actually connect somebody to a crime scene based on a bite mark. You might be able to swab that bite mark and find DNA, though. So bite marks still have a use in criminal investigations. And I think that's all I wanted to say at this point.
Yeah, that sounds, thank you, Kelley. And thanks, Missy, for setting up our DNA Day factoids. Let's jump into Jack's case. And Kelley and Missy worked on his case, and they're gonna give a little bit of details about the facts of his case for anyone who doesn't know. And also what NCIP's involvement was. And then we wanna hear, obviously, from Jack. So why don't you want to start, Missy, with the facts, and then Kelley can talk about NCIP's involvement?
Sure. So back in July 1985, a woman by the name of Paula DeRocher was tragically murdered in her home. Her daughter is the one who found her body. Paula was found in her living room. She had been stabbed several times. She had defensive wounds to her hands, and there were obvious signs of her struggle with her attacker before she succumbed to her wounds. What became significant about the crime scene for us with the Innocence Project were the items of evidence that were left behind. One, the victim was clad only in her bathrobe through which she had been stabbed and which had deposits of blood on it. There was a pillow found next to her head that had hairs on it. This pillow was believed to be used during the attack. There was a bloodstained towel that had been found draped over the bottom of her legs, which we believed couldn't have gotten there but for by the perpetrator. And as I previously mentioned, she had defensive wounds to her hands, which she suffered during the attack, and scrapings from her fingernails had been collected by law enforcement at the time. Law enforcement collected all of these items that I just described, and they retained them, thankfully, as Kelley will share, for the last 30 years. There were no leads in Ms. DeRocher's murder. There was no signs of forced entry. There was nothing stolen from the home. And so the case went cold for a couple of months until October 1985. And at this time, Jack was in custody for burglaries that he had admitted to committing. And while he was in custody, 2 jailhouse informants, like those that Kelley was describing that we know through DNA work, are one of the leading causes of wrongful conviction. And these 2 jailhouse informants came forward and claimed that Jack had confessed the murder to them. Both of these men testified at Jack's trial, which shockingly to those of us who do criminal work, Jack's trial was within exactly 1 year from the murder that happened in this case, which is incredibly fast when it comes to homicides, particularly because it was charged as a special circumstance murder. The informants offered up a theory that Jack was committing a burglary, and it was during the course of that burglary that he killed Miss DeRocher. So based on this theory, Jack was arrested, prosecuted, convicted based on the words of these 2 jailhouse informants, and he was sentenced by the court to serve a sentence of life without the possibility of parole, which in essence was basically a commitment to have him die in prison. And then NCIP got the case in 2001.
I'm going to cut in just real quick here. I want to let you know that Waylon, she is watching.
Oh,
Do you want to
good.
talk? Yeah, do you want to talk about, just as a little interlude, what you guys have been doing with his class?
Go ahead,
That
Missy.
is amazing.
Yeah, that's great.
So Waylon is an amazing teacher at
Andrew Hill.
Andrew Hill High School in San Jose. That's what I said. That's what I thought I said. Sorry. And he is a phenomenal science teacher who invites us in every year to come in and talk about our cases. And Kelley and I personally have been going in for the last several years, and I'm pretty sure the entire conversation has been about Jack's case for the last at least 5 years. And Jack, his students, and Waylon himself have often dreamed of the day of having you visit with them. So for Waylon's sake, and I hope for a lot of his students that they're all watching right now to see you in the flesh and see you home and free. So Waylon, thank you so much for joining us. And we are really bummed. We were actually supposed to present in your class tomorrow.
Back with us.
Yeah, exactly.
Jack, also Duke Haltom says, Jack, what, bro? Just wanted you to say, wanted you to know. Thanks. Okay, take it away, Kelley.
All right. Well, I have a little history lesson going on. So in 1989, the Innocence Project started in New York. And since 1989, there have been, I think I have the number written down here someplace. I think it is, here we go. There are now 67 Innocence projects or affiliated organizations worldwide. And we're all part of an organization called the Innocence Network. And we talk to each other and we help each other with our cases. And it's pretty phenomenal that we have each other as resources because there are so few people doing what we do. But moving forward, in 2001, NCIP opened its doors, and Jack Sagin's case was one of the very first. So when we get a case, we look into them and we figure, okay, is this person stating something that is innocence, not that, it was a consent thing, or that, they did something, but they didn't do the thing that they were convicted of. That's not what we do. We look for people who actually didn't do the crime. And it's a pretty high bar, and you have to sort through a lot of cases to find those. So we look through a lot of cases. We read every single application that comes to us. And Jack's case caught somebody's attention, and Missy and I were not working at NCIP at that point, but we're really glad that it did, because they started investigating, and they went to Monterey where the crime happened, and they found there was evidence that was still being held at the police station, in the courts, in the labs, and they realized that there were some things that might have some DNA on them. And there was this new statute that allowed for post-conviction DNA testing. And it all came about, and kind of was amazing that it all came together at basically the right time, because we had these items and the DA's office wasn't particularly interested in just letting us test them. So we had to litigate it. And the attorneys who were working on the case at that time litigated it. They filed things in court, and they went to court and they argued, and eventually they got the right to do that DNA testing. So the DNA testing started in 2009, and there were many rounds of DNA testing, and the testing went all the way through until about 2015. So in this time, and I'm going to ask Jack to explain his side of things, but I'm going to go really quickly through the timeline here. We send a whole bunch of items of evidence to a lab in Richmond called the Serological Research Institute, our SERI. And we asked them to see if they could find male DNA or DNA of somebody that wasn't supposed to be there, on a bunch of items of evidence. The victim, Paula DeRocher, was wearing a robe when she was stabbed to death. So we sent that in. There's a pillow that was found next to her head that was used to smother her at one point, probably. And we sent that in as well. There were the towels that Missy mentioned earlier. We sent those in because they were covered in blood and most likely were left there by the person who committed the crime. And they had these fingernail clippings that that we sent in, as to round out the package that was sent in. And what we came out with was a bunch of people's DNA on these items of evidence. But what was strikingly absent was Jack Sagin's DNA. Here he is supposed to have committed this very violent, very close contact, physically intimate crime where somebody was struggling for her life. And his DNA wasn't on anything. And remember, this crime happened before DNA was being used in this way that anybody knew of. So either Jack Sagin could see the future and knew to wear a hazmat suit while he was committing this crime, which is completely unlikely, or he didn't do it. And we went with the second choice because that seemed a heck of a lot more reasonable. And at this point, we really believed what he was saying to us, because everything that we were testing backed up what he said about the crime, which was he wasn't there. And we found nothing that suggested he was. And so we started filing petitions for writ of habeas corpus. And we filed the first one in 2012. It was filed in the Monterey Superior Court, and we lost. The court just denied it. So we filed, a couple months later, we filed in the 6th District. And 2 years later, 6th District says, well, I think that Jack Sagin's case needs more. And sends it back to the Monterey Superior Court and says, you have to order the other side to answer why this shouldn't be granted. So we go through all the briefing where we both argue back and forth in writing. And the court, the Superior Court in Monterey, denies us. And that was in 2015. So that same year, we filed another petition in the 6th District. And that time, the 6th District ordered the Superior Court to have a hearing on the case. And so the 6th District did hold a hearing on the case. And that was in April of 2017. But between those dates, this amazing thing happened. And there was a new penal code section that came about, 1473B3. And it basically said, and I'm going to paraphrase because I have not memorized the entire statute, which is shocking because I should have, which is that there is newly discovered evidence that is of such decisive force and value that had it been known by the jury at the time of trial, that it would have made a difference in the outcome of the case. And that difference could be as much as just the changing of the mind of one single juror. That's it. That's all that gets you, that's all that's required to change an outcome. So we had this new standard that was amazing, and amazing for Jack, because it changed it from the previous standard, which was that it had to point unerringly to innocence. So if you can,
Kel, I would just point out real quick that our project, as well as the 2 other innocence projects in California, were responsible for sponsoring that change in the law because of clients like Jack, who kept losing under this old standard, and the fear of innocent clients dying in prison, that we all put forth this law and had it changed in 2017.
yeah. So a couple months later in April, we go to court, and we presented a bunch of evidence to the court, led by the incomparable Missy O'Connell. And the state put on their witnesses, and one of the witnesses that the district attorney's office put on the stand was their own DNA expert. And their own DNA expert testified that it was unlikely that the person who murdered Paula DeRocher would not leave behind their DNA. And we were looking at this thinking, oh my God, this is amazing. We're totally going to win. But we didn't. We found out a couple months later that we actually lost. And so we filed again in the 6th district. And we litigated again through the 6th district. And this time, in August of 2019, the 6th district reversed Jack Sagin's conviction after 30 years.
Yay.
32 years? 32 years.
Jack's happy.
Sorry.
33, right?
So
33, Jack? 33? Sorry.
3.
Those 3 years are very important because I was working. But then on October 10th, right? Or the 11th? 11th, sorry. I don't have my tattoo yet, but Jack does.
Yeah.
October 11th of 2019, we all got to watch Jack Sagin walk out of prison. It was one of the most incredible experiences. I think I can speak for all of us in all of our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Jack, what was your first reaction when the bus came driving in, picked you up, drove you to the parking lot with all of your stuff?
Well, I'll tell you what,
Dropped you off in front of
all of you, yeah.
But
and our friends at California Innocence Project in San Diego. Like, they sent, Jasmine was there, she's watching now, so hey Jasmine.
Yeah.
They had interns and volunteers. Like, there were so many people. Your sister Barb was there, Jerry was there, Cookie was there, Linda, like all of us from NCIP students. Came down.
And the warden. I think it's important too for people to know that the warden and several of the high-level staff at RJ Donovan were all standing out there to watch Jack come out a free man, which was just incredible.
What was your thought?
Well, you know, the day before I got out, they called me to the administration building. And I said, what the hell did I do wrong? You know, I went over there, and this guy was all serious, man. He says, follow me in here. You know, so he had a suit on and all that. And but he wasn't telling me nothing. And then I just have a seat right there, you know. And he got behind his desk and he was doing some calling. He says, oh, you'll be leaving in the morning, after he got through doing all his calling. And that's when it set in with me. And I got a big send off. The captain himself came and got me and escorted me out to receiving and releasing to be processed out. And when I got to the parking lot and seen all you guys, I said, this is a sight here. You know, I mean, it was great, absolutely great. It was.
So Jack, we've been talking about DNA and, you know, in your case and, you know, your case happened in 1985. Kelley has been throwing around this date of 1989 of when DNA hit the court. What did you do, or did you do anything when DNA hit the courtrooms?
In I think it was 1988 or 89, right there somewhere. I heard Vandekamp on TV and come up with this DNA, man. It's killer DNA. I mean, you know, that'll get you, you know. So there's no fighting that, you know. And so right away I jumped all over it. I was writing Vandekamp, the Attorney General. I said, man, send somebody down here to do me. You know, I'm willing to get it done. And never did get an answer from him. But I went through oh man, felt like a ton of testing. You know, I test for the Attorney General. I test for the cops in Monterey. Well, I gave them swabs. You know, these were all swabs. The Innocence Project, so on and so forth. And I just kept, and the time it took, you know, to finally, it took a while to finally get to where we needed to get. But you know what, DNA, I can't say enough about it. It saved my life, is what it did, along with you guys. You know, you guys, you know, believing in me and taking the DNA for what it's worth, you know, and what they're saying. And I mean, you know, they had enough DNA to convict 5 guys, you know, and yet I got convicted, you know. And the jailhouse informant thing that I like to say is when we were in jail, you kind of run out of things to talk about. So before I was arrested, an officer came on me outside and he told me, he said, hey, Sagin, he said, you know a guy named Russell Wilder? And I said, no, what's up? He said, man, we think he killed his old lady. That's the way he put it. We think he killed his old lady. He's a nut. So I said, oh yeah, I said, good luck, you know, and that's as far as it went. Well, I revealed this in what was told to me by the cop, you know, to a guy that I didn't know was an informant. I was telling him about that. And in turn, he called the police and put me in there with Russell. So that's how that turned out, you know, so. Anyway,
I think that's important to kind of explain that jailhouse informants often are born by getting little pieces from sources and turning them into someone's confession, and that also came out in 1990, right? So after you were convicted, not only did this thing DNA come about, but we also learned about jailhouse informants and how dangerous they were because they made these false claims and yet they were believed by people.
Well, you know, I have people that weren't even involved in my case, not even from my county, like you guys know them, like Ted Rorlick from the Los Angeles Times newspaper. When they broke the real scandal of Leslie White in LA County Jail with Leslie Amerson and Gigi Gordon, she was involved in that also. And anyway, they knew that the guys that were testifying on me were the same caliber of people that were testifying in LA County Jail, getting the newspaper, calling the coroner, you know, and saying, this is Sergeant Jones. Where did you say that stab wound was on James Franks? You know, and they say, oh, in the chest. Yeah, okay, thank you. You know, and they're faking, you know, on the phone. And they get this information and then they call the cops and say, hey, I was on the bus with him. He told me that. He told me he stabbed him in the chest. And they read it in the paper. I mean, it's crazy. They do this.
I got a question.
Yeah.
More about when, going back to when we were, when you found out that you were going home.
Yeah.
What did you say? Like when that happened, what was the story?
Hey, when he told me I was going home, I walked all the way back to the cell block bow-legged. I was all wobbling all over. I said, man, I'm going home tomorrow. And,
what did you think you were gonna do when you got out? What is the first thing you wanted to do?
Oh, I wanted to see my sister, all you guys. I wanted to thank everybody. I mean, you guys went the extra mile for me all the way, and my sister, she just hung in there with me and, constantly believed in me, was doing all sorts of things, calling. I think she probably bugged the attorneys crazy, she
Never.
I mean, she wanted me out, and
So did we.
yeah. I mean, you know what? Like I say, DNA, literally, it saved my life because had DNA not been found, invented or whatever word you would use for it, you know what? I would have been walking in that graveyard still today, because I would have never gotten out, and for all them years I did. I lost all that lifetime, for something I didn't even do. I never met this woman in my life. I've never seen her. I don't deal with them people that were hanging around there, were the complete opposite. I mean, everything. There was nothing missing out of that. And you know what? I used to watch so many programs, 48, 2020, you name it. And I'd call on there and, John Scarnamaglia, I'd say, hey, man, you hear about this one on 48 Hours? And I would learn things like murders that are committed like that, nothing never taken. And it's normally done by somebody close to the individual, and I'm telling, them that, and all this, and James Donato, his wife, Rhonda Donato, I believe it is. And I was letting them know. And plus, I probably called you guys a few times. And
Couple.
Just a couple.
yeah, I just every week, and
Dad,
hey.
what are you doing? Let's talk about some of the things you're doing now. What'd you do today?
Today?
What did you do yesterday?
Well, we played music yesterday and had fun. And you know what? I do a little workout thing. I take a walk, and I take a long walk. Maybe walk like 2 miles. Not a whole bunch. And I used to be able to draw a little bit, but I'm not seeing too well. And so I kind of just work out, go out in the backyard, work out in my sister's yard, because as soon as she comes home, she goes, "Are you water? Did you water?" And she's cool. But I stay busy. I stay busy.
And you've met family, and you've gone to family get-togethers.
Yeah, you guys took me to Monterey and Carmel, and I got to see my sister-in-law and my niece and nephew, and it was really great. I haven't seen them in 33 years. It's been a long time,
And who are
that was just beautiful.
Arizona?
Huh?
Who are the folks in Arizona?
Who are the folks in Arizona?
Yeah, that you've been
That's
meeting.
my sister. Huh? Yeah, my sister Barbara and my brother-in-law Jerry and their grandkids and great grandkids. we're all a little old here. We're all a little old here. And
What about the kids, your kids?
yeah, I got my son, I got my grandkids, and I kind of inherited my wife, we never split up because we were mad at each other. We split up because we just could never be with each other. I was always in prison. But anyway, she got a divorce, and she never remarried, but she had a couple of kids with a guy, and these two kids kind of took to me for some reason. And they're my son's stepbrother, half brother, half sister, and I kind of took to them. So, it's working out right, and it's a little family there, my grandkids, my daughter-in-law, I get to, doing little things with them. My daughter-in-law, she's a big sports, she's like Missy, she loves sports, but everything has to be Arizona. I don't like that.
Yeah, tell people what's your favorite football team.
Oh yeah, Pittsburgh Steelers. The
So
Steelers all the way.
tell them about your hat and why we had to sit outside for about 10 extra hours on the day of your release.
Oh yeah. Well, I altered my hat. I made it into a Pittsburgh Steelers hat. I put the little logos around, and all that. Got it done. Painted the other side so it showed out really good. And in fact, when I went to the administration building, that hat got to go, man. You're altering, you're altering state property. That what you got in there is theirs. So I took it and had it. Thank God you had one. I got one from you.
Kelley
Yeah.
Kelley went out and got Jack a legit Steelers hat. So he had some. I'm surprised you're not wearing it today, but
Yeah. Well, hey,
Yesterday.
Kelley will tell you that hat was pretty good. Believe me, that hat was pretty good.
Your made hat was pretty awesome, and
Yeah.
also it's hanging in Missy's office.
I have it in my office.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Jack, I have a couple questions from
Sure.
and one from a faculty member at Santa Clara University. Do you remember getting letters of hope from students that I sent to you in a pack?
Oh yeah, hey, that was really fantastic. That was something, And each one, it was a bunch of letters from all the students, and you know what? Each one had some idea what would help me, and I really appreciate what they had to say. The one I like best is take a walk through the Grand Canyon. And my brother-in-law didn't like that because he couldn't make it up. He had to park for a while, coming uphill. And but anyway, that was really nice. Every one of them, they had something nice to say. And, I really appreciated that.
Yeah, they we presented to their class, and they were really taken by your story, and they wanted to do something special for you. And so I think those letters came at the end of the year. So I think it was in December.
Yeah.
So just a couple months after you got out.
Yeah, it was real quick. Yeah, it was. And it really surprised me, when I opened that and I said, man, just letter after letter, I went, whoa, man, all these letters, and I mean, they were nice. They were really nice. Yeah. Everything they said was really nice. Yeah. And that some of them even explained what they, what they would done, what they had done, and they said, hey, this might be helpful for you. Same thing as, and I appreciate that. I did. Yeah, it's great.
There's another question from another student about your music and if that helped you while you were in prison. And also if you have learned any new songs lately, because remember when you visited the NCIP office, played some songs. And
Yeah. Well, I think you can ask Lori if we learned any new music. Because no, hey, yeah, we play a lot of stuff. We do a lot of old stuff, But I enjoy playing, and it's fun for me. It's fun.
Did you learn when you were inside?
Well, what I did was, that's where I picked it up and just drove with it. And my sister, in the joints that I was in, the maximum security joints, prisons, they weren't allowed no electric equipment. So, it was acoustic, and some prisons you could check one out. They had like 3 or 4 for the whole population, 1,000 guys. And they had like 3 or 4 guitars. And but anyway, my sister bought me a guitar. She surprised me because she asked me. She said, You still playing music?" And I said, "Nah, I don't have a guitar. I'm just kind of using this guy's that guy. She said, "All right." And next thing I knew, they called me to R&R to go pick up a guitar. And she had bought me a guitar, and I played, and I kept playing. And then finally, when I got to Donovan, they had electric equipment there. And I mean, that place was just so relaxed. I mean, no tension, no, I hate you, you hate me, and let's move on. None of that. Just everybody. Hi, good morning. How you doing? See you tomorrow. I mean, it was really good, to be there on E-Yard there in San Diego and Donovan. And there I got into the music and started playing. Got to put the band together. Got a little band, We were having fun, It was nice. I enjoy music.
a couple more questions. What surprised you the most when you got out of prison?
Oh, God. Yeah. Well, I can tell you. Well, I should have known these things, but I didn't. First off, I noticed there was no phone booths. And I was, what in the hell's all the phone booths? Usually you could come out of the store and go to the phone booth, make a call, and there was none of them. And then my brother-in-law, that's the first thing he did, Jerry, and my sister, took me right down to Verizon and said, "Get him a phone." That thing drove me nuts, and they got me that phone, and I started tinkering with that, and oh man, I mean, I still got problems with it. Anyway, but there's no phones hanging up in the house. I mean, there's no, I mean, man, that's kind of hard to believe, and I mean, you got machines. You go in a grocery store, you pay a machine. Hell, you don't even talk to a person. The machine is taking your money and thank you and bye, you go. And stuff like that. And the place I live in right now, which is a great place, Maricopa, but they don't have no buses. Can you believe that? No bus. Really?
Believe it, yeah.
Like if I wanted to take a bus from here to Phoenix, you can't do it, And I thought buses run everywhere, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, what I mean, just people, just the way they just strut around, they just carefree, they ain't caring about nothing, who's looking, what's happening. Let's just go forward, you know what I mean? And but I mean, it's all good. It's all good.
Have you seen any good movies lately?
No, I'm not really a movie thing. I seen the one with In the Wild. I seen, me and my sister went to the show, movie theater. We sat down and watched that. That was really good. I enjoyed it. We watched that. But as far as watching movies on TV and stuff like that, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's all this time I did. I'm always looking for like Like last night, I was looking. No, not last night. Night before, I was looking at serial killers. You know, yeah. They're showing Ted Bundy.
Shows. There's a lot of shows about serial killers and
Yeah, I'm watching it and I'm all tied up with it. And I'm looking, man, at this stuff and what do you call it? That guy, what do they call him? The highway killers,
yeah.
Bono and Lobianco,
Yeah.
Lobianco and Bono. Anyway, Bono only lived at like about 5 cells from me in prison
Oh,
in Calipat.
wow.
And Bono lived like 5 cells from me. He died in that cell. He died in his sleep. And but I mean, them dudes were notorious. I mean, oh man, And I was watching their case. I was watching, I watch and I'm always in 48 hours, 2020. Listening to that stuff, man. And Missy and Kelley's lucky. I hate calling them.
What are you talking about?
I got some info.
I know you still call a fair bit. I wish you watched like Oprah or Ellen or something. We got to get you more light watching.
Yeah, I watched Ellen for a little while. I never have been a real movie kind of guy. I don't know why.
Hey, Jack,
Yeah.
can you talk about what you did when you ended up in prison for something you didn't do, and it was before DNA, and you had basically nobody to help you after your appeal was over.
Oh
What did
yeah.
you do?
Yeah. Well, what I did was when I went in prison, and you know what, I was walking in circles because the realization of the sentence, came on me.
What was your
I mean,
sentence?
my sentence was life without the possibility of parole. So there was no chance that I would ever get out. There's no chance that the governor would have commuted me, or whatever, And so I went hog wild, I wrote my congressman, Leon Panetta, I wrote him asking him for help. I said, man, I did not commit this crime. I don't, I even told the judge he made a big mistake. This is a big mistake you made. He didn't want to hear it. I wrote him every month, I think it was, or every couple of weeks. I wrote him, a little paragraph. I'm innocent. Would you please hear me? I'm innocent. Never got nothing back from him, and I wrote him a lot of times. And like I said, I wrote Bandicam. I even wrote the FBI, if you want to believe that one, because the reason why I came up with that is because when I found out about the federal thing, well, I figured, with Dan Mall on a federal murder case and the informant, Graxiola was working on him. Well, you know what? I said, well, man, that's federal, so I'll go with that. But anyway, when I got there in prison, I just went crazy, thinking, what the hell am I going to do? My sister didn't know. And then when I heard about that, I wrote Bereshek in New York. Bereshek wrote back, him and Peter Newfield wrote me back. And they said, take your case to San Diego. So I went to San Diego. San Diego in turn said, no, you're from Northern California. They got an Innocence project down there. So, and this is with some help. I got a guy that's helping me out here, with all this stuff. And because, I'm looking for some representation, some help, and anyway, we did that. We got the Northern California Innocence Project. But before all that, I was in court with two with two inmates who were jailhouse lawyers. They knew the law well, and I got them to work on my case. I even got a job in the library, in the law library. I got a job, and I didn't know squat, nothing. And so I got in there, and I just kind of bullied my way in there with the lady that worked in there. I said, "Man, I need a job in here. I'm willing to work. You don't have to pay me. I'll just work." It only paid like 6 cents an hour. I mean, 6 cents an hour. But anyway, I got these guys. They started putting my case together. I got more information from the Los Angeles Times. They started getting that. I started getting information, about the informant, and how the police were working with him, and placing him in cell, with whoever they wanted a confession from, and he'd get the confession. And then they instruct him not to say anything about it. Don't say anything.
Jack, I think what you're highlighting, Jack, if I may interject for a second, because I realize on time here, but when you have a case that's based on, evidence like jailhouse informants, the only way to prove someone's innocence is if if those jailhouse informants recant their claims, and the whole reason jailhouse informants come forward is because their personal interest supersede everyone else's, right?
Oh,
they're willing
absolutely.
to lie, to sacrifice someone else. And so that's what's so incredible about your case, is because, as an Innocence Project, we realized very early on with your case that the only way that we could prove your innocence was through DNA evidence. And while that highlights the power of DNA, it also is terrifying, right? That was the only avenue that we could pursue to prove your innocence. And it wasn't just that the DNA results, like Kelley explained, excluded you from all of the evidence that was intimately connected to Mr. Rocher's tragic murder, but it was also because it revealed the presence of other male DNA profiles there. And I think it's important for people to understand that, sometimes the absence of someone's DNA isn't enough for the courts to believe in someone's innocence, because of things like Kelley was saying, like, well, what if they had a hazmat suit on, or were wearing gloves or a hat? And these were these were arguments that we were faced with, right? But it was because these items also revealed male DNA there, and yet the one person who was incarcerated and convicted for this horrible crime was nowhere. And that's ultimately what the court reversed on, was to say, how is it that this poor victim who fought for her life had, male DNA under her fingernails, and Jack Sagin's nowhere. And that's what made the difference for the court. And that's why we get to see you over Zoom today.
I gotta tell you that
Wait, Lori.
Jack, you might still struggle with some of the technology, but you have come a long way. And
I can zoom in.
We're all very impressed, but we are running out of time, and I want to give you a chance to make any final comments, but I also want to give you a chance to play a song.
No problems if you'll sing it.
I will always sing with you, Jack.
Sure. I'm cool with that.
So we'll end. Does anybody have closing remarks? Is there anything that you want to say before we close, and we'll close with a song? Kelley?
I want to add, I can speak for Missy.
What?
I think I can speak for Missy when I say, Jack, that it has been our honor to be able to be your attorneys for
that's really nice.
Whose shoulders we stand on, working on your case, did an amazing job. And we are so lucky we didn't have to start at the first day with your case.
Yeah, yeah.
But to have a client who is as demonstrably innocent and also able to advocate on his own behalf is amazing. And it's our
Yeah.
honor to know you and to share this journey with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. You know, and in return, you know what? I am so thankful for the Northern California Innocence Project for what they've done. I mean, you know, along with the DNA, hey, it worked out perfect. And you know what? It took a long time, but
Sure did.
I'm gonna live to be 100 anyway, so you know.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well,
Living.
thank you so much for participating. Take out for our upcoming series on Facebook Live. We have 3 more coming up. But let's close it out with a song, Jack.
Okay.
And the living fish are jumping and the mountain is high. Oh, and your mind look so much. Don't you cry. One of these mornings, you're gonna rise up singing. Then you'll spread your till that morning, there's nothing and living Missy, fish are jumping. Oh, daddy's rich and your mom's looking. Oh, hi, little baby, don't.
Good looking. Good doing. That was good.
Nice job, Jack.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Bye, Jack. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. I know how to.
Bye, everyone.
Can I put my
Stay
thumb back in?
Yep.
All right. I'll see you guys.
All right.
Bye.
Bingo. Hey, what